Jake, a solo camper, pitched his tent in a secluded Oregon forest, craving solitude after a stressful year. At midnight, the woods were unnaturally quiet. No crickets, no wind, just the crackle of his campfire. His phone had no signal, and the air felt heavy, like a storm brewing under a clear sky. As he roasted a marshmallow, a cold breeze swept through, making the flames flicker wildly. A faint whisper, like a man's voice, muttered his name from the trees. Jake scanned the darkness with his flashlight, finding nothing, but the whispers grew, forming disjointed phrases, "Stay here, don't leave." His heart raced. He blamed exhaustion, but the fire flared, casting shadows that moved against the wind. A twig snapped nearby, and a figure darted between the trees, too tall to be human. Jake swept his flashlight over the trees, revealing strange carvings on a nearby pine. Spirals and the word, "stay," scratched deep into the bark. His stomach twisted. He hadn't noticed them when setting up camp. The whispers intensified, now a low chant, and the campfire dimmed as if smothered. His flashlight flickered, revealing a rusted axe buried in a stump, its blade stained dark. Local stories of a logger who vanished in these woods decades ago flashed through his mind. The air grew thick, pressing against his chest, and the whispers formed a sentence, "You're one of us." He backed toward his tent, but the ground felt soft, like it was pulling him down. A shadow loomed behind the fire, tall and thin, its eyes glinting like embers. Jake scrambled into his tent, zipping it shut, his heart pounding. The whispers followed, now inside the tent, circling him. He lit a lantern, its weak glow revealing nothing but canvas. The air grew colder, his sleeping bag shifting as if someone sat on it. A low chuckle echoed, and the lantern flickered, casting a shadow of a man on the tent wall, tall, in a flannel shirt, holding an axe. Jake screamed, slashing at the shadow with his knife, but it vanished. The whispers became a voice, "Join me." He unzipped the tent, desperate to flee, but the campfire was gone, replaced by a circle of glowing eyes in the darkness. The figure appeared again, closer, its face hollow, mouth moving silently. Jake bolted from the tent, running blindly through the forest. The trees seemed to shift, their branches clawing at him. He stumbled into a clearing, where his campfire burned again, impossibly bright. The ghostly man sat on a log, his eyes locked on Jake, an axe across his knees. The whispers became a chant, "Stay forever." Other figures emerged, loggers in tattered clothes, their faces pale and twisted. Jake's legs felt heavy, the ground sucking him in. The man stood, his form flickering, pointing at Jake, his voice booming, "You belong here." The fire flared, and the figures closed in, their hands cold as they grabbed at him. Jake swung his knife, but it passed through them, the air thick and hard to breathe. Desperate, Jake abandoned his tent, sprinting toward where he'd parked his car. The whispers grew louder, now a chorus of angry voices. His backpack snagged on a branch, ripping open, and his gear scattered, maps, food, a compass, all sinking into the soft ground. The ghostly man appeared ahead, his axe swinging slowly, as if cutting the air. Jake's flashlight flickered, revealing more carvings on the trees, names of lost loggers from decades past. The air grew colder, frost forming on his jacket, and the man's voice whispered, "You can't leave." Shadows of axes gleamed in the darkness, and Jake felt a cold hand brush his neck, pulling him back toward the clearing. Jake stumbled, falling near the campfire, which flared green. The ghostly man loomed over him, his face half decayed, revealing he was part of a logging crew lost in a forest fire in 1972, their spirits trapped by a curse tied to the woods. He begged Jake to stay, saying the forest needed souls to feed its hunger. The air grew heavy, and Jake's breath formed words in the frost, "Stay forever." The man's axe gleamed, and the other figures chanted, their forms merging into a writhing mass. Jake saw flashes of the fire, trees burning, men screaming, trapped forever. The man's hand gripped Jake's arm, burning cold, and the campfire pulsed, pulling him toward it. Jake tore free, running again, but the forest looped, bringing him back to the clearing. The ghostly man sat in Jake's tent now, his voice a growl, "You're ours." The trees closed in, their branches forming a cage. Jake's flashlight dimmed, and the campfire's flames formed faces, screaming his name. The ground shook, roots wrapping around his ankles, and the figures closed in, their axes raised. Jake's vision blurred, his body heavy, as the forest seemed to breathe, its air suffocating. He swung his flashlight, the light burning the man's form, but the others pressed closer, their faces twisting into grotesque masks of rage and sorrow. The clearing narrowed, the trees pressing tighter. Jake's flashlight flickered, and the ghostly man's axe swung, grazing his arm, leaving a cold burn. The whispers became a deafening roar, chanting, "Join us." The other figures merged into a shadowy mass, their hands clawing at Jake, pulling him toward the fire. He saw flashes of other campers, all trapped, their faces in the flames. The ground pulsed, sinking beneath him, and the man's laughter filled the air, his eyes glowing brighter. Jake fought, swinging the flashlight, which burned the mass, scattering it briefly. But the forest tightened its grip, the trees bending, blocking any escape. Jake screamed, planting his feet, refusing to sink into the ground. He aimed his flashlight at the ghostly man, the light burning his form, making him shriek. The other figures recoiled, their chants faltering. Jake grabbed a burning stick from the campfire, waving it wildly, and the flames disrupted the mass, scattering it further. The forest groaned, the trees shaking as if in pain. Jake ran, the light and fire keeping the figures at bay, but the clearing looped again, the campfire reappearing. He threw the stick, igniting a tree, and the forest screamed, the man's form flickering violently. Jake's heart pounded as he sprinted, praying for an exit. As dawn's first light crept through the trees, the ghostly man's form faded, his screams becoming whispers, then silence. The forest opened, revealing Jake's car. He dove in, the engine roaring to life, and sped away, the clearing vanishing behind him. The axe remained by the campfire, burned into the ground. At a gas station, Jake told the clerk about the camp, who paled, saying, "That clearing's been empty since a logging crew burned in '72. Jake never returned to the forest, but at night, he hears whispers calling him back, and sees glowing eyes in his dreams. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can stay updated with more amazing stories coming your way. Join our community and never miss an adventure.